Hey everyone, welcome. Dominic here with the Catholic Homeschool Neighborhood. Really glad to be joined today by Dr. Pamela Patnode. How are you, Dr. Pam?
I'm wonderful. It's a joy to be here with you.
By the way, I apologize. Is it Dr. Pam or it's Pamela? How do you like people to address you?
You know what? Either one is just fine.
Okay, all right, great. Well, we're on a quest with you to help you find the best fit for your homeschool life. This Catholic Homeschool Neighborhood introduces you to friendly creators and guides as you build your own homeschool neighborhood. I'm your host, Dominic DeSouza, a second gen homeschool dad. Today we're joined by Dr. Pamela Patnode, founder of Philomena Press. We'll be right back with her story in just a second. Alrighty, Dr. Pam. I like to start with a short story before we talk about your work and what it is you do. What inspired you to get into homeschooling, like at all? Was there a moment there? Is there a story? Can you share that with us?
You know, there's actually two stories that connected, and they were happening about the same time. We had five children in 7 years, and there was a moment where our three older children were attending our parish school. And
Mhm.
it was a beautiful school, still is a beautiful school, and they were having a wonderful experience. But there were two things that happened during the course of that year that really caused me to reflect, and I think God used as a tool to put into my heart that we ought to consider something different. One was that over a period of a few weeks,
Mhm.
there were a number of activities that were happening at the school, and they were beautiful activities. They were a spelling bee, a geography bee, a choir concert, a party in the classroom, wonderful events going on in the school. But in the home, what I found myself saying to the younger children, who were 3 and 2 years old at the time, hurry up, honey, we need to get your shoes on and your jacket on so that we can go to the school. Or, I'm so sorry to wake you up from your nap, but we need to go to the school for this event. And after a couple of times of doing that, something in my heart said, you know, this 2-year-old shouldn't have to hurry up and get shoes on to get out the door to a spelling bee in 20 minutes. This 2-year-old should be allowed to take a nap. And it started to weigh on me. And the other thing that happened, I also was involved in the school, and I was working on their faith formation team. I was doing some work with their marketing team, and our three children went to school on one particular day, and our younger two children were napping on this particular day. And I was working like crazy on the computer for these volunteer activities that I was doing. And I can remember the school bus pulling up outside our home, meaning the children were home. And my first reaction was, crud, they're home already, because I had so much yet to finish.
Mhm.
And then I paused and I thought, what am I saying? They've been gone since 8 o'clock this morning. Where are my priorities? And at that moment, I realized that I could be very involved with my children's school without being involved with my children. And
Wow.
it was
Mhm.
that realization, coupled with what God was placing upon my heart, that we decided we were going to really investigate homeschooling. And the following year, we began the journey.
Wow, that's powerful. So, fast forwarding then to today, tell us then about your work with Philomena Press. You're creating faith formation materials. What was the birth of that, and what's happening with that?
So the birth of that really coincided with the first book that I wrote, which is 5 Steps to Successful Homeschooling. And I wrote the book, and received the imprimatur, the Nihil Obstat, and was in conversation with different publishers at the time. And the Catholic publishers were saying this is of value. And it amuses me now because we look at the world post-pandemic and we can see how homeschooling has just exploded. But if you rewind the clock 10 years, the Catholic book publishers were saying, we're just not sure there's a large enough market for this. And so my husband and I talked and said, what message do we want to send to our children? We have been hearing from the priest that wrote the foreword for the book. We were hearing from the bishop who granted the Nihil Obstat, the imprimatur, and that this is good. We were hearing from families that this is information that needed to get out to other Catholic homeschooling families, because 10 years ago, too, the number of resources available for Catholic home educators was really small compared to the number of resources available for Protestant homeschooling families, for example.
Right.
And so we said, gosh, I have marketing background. My husband is a CPA. He's got business background. We could turn this into something that we demonstrate to our children, that we can still move this forward. And so we did. And we founded Philomena Press. And that led to other book publications. It led to speaking opportunities. It led to an opportunity to be on EWTN. And it just opened many doors in both English and Spanish. And because I happen to speak Spanish and do a fair amount of work in the Hispanic Latino community. And so it was really just a beautiful blessing. But it was birthed in this whole idea of the homeschool. And how can we continue to teach our children, but take it out of the textbook and do something a little bit different?
Sure. So when people, so do you offer like a program, or you're producing resources? What is it people can get from exploring Philomena Press?
Sure. So if you go to the Philomena Press website, what you'll find is, first, you'll find this book on Catholic home education and the 5 steps that are really needed. It isn't so much a curriculum, although it does include curriculum resources that are recommended. It also includes recommended reading, but it's really a bigger picture, because at the time people were saying, I get it. I understand that I can choose this particular curriculum, but seriously, how do you do it? How do you find time to homeschool and get the laundry done? And so it was really the practical element of homeschooling. How do you homeschool your kids, but still make sure they have friendships and develop, and so it really is answering those questions while also including the practicals. But then what birthed from there were some resources for teaching children about the sacraments. And because being a mom and journeying through the sacraments with our children, one of the things I realized was, boy, there's very, very little to either give as a gift or to teach on the sacrament of reconciliation. And very few resources for young children at that age. And what I also realized is there's equally few parents that understand the sacrament of reconciliation and its biblical roots, for example, and the church teaching on it. And so we started to develop some of these resources that are now used in parishes nationwide. And then we realized, I had people coming to me saying, boy, your book on homeschooling is so, the 5 steps are really things that all Catholic families should be embracing, whether they home educate or not. Can you translate that into a book for all Catholic parents? And that's how Dare to Live Catholic was born. And so you'll find lots of resources at the website, needless to say. And then the most recent book is really geared specific for Catholic schools. So
okay, tell us about the most recent book. What is that one?
So that one is really born from my love of working with the Hispanic Latino population, and so we home educated our children, and now we've been empty nesters for 7 whole weeks, and the children have grown. And so what I did then was, because I found through homeschooling that I had such a love for education and Catholic education in particular, that
Mhm.
I moved into the world of Catholic schooling, the traditional brick and mortar schools.
Okay.
And while I was working in a Catholic high school that had a fairly large Latino population, I at the same time was earning my doctorate in education and was doing research in that field.
Mhm.
And my dissertation was published, and the National Catholic Educational Association picked up on it, and I what I did for them is take that dissertation and all of the research and translate it into a more user-friendly text, and
Oh,
they
beautiful.
published the book. And so that book, Me Puede Enseñar, Can You Teach Me, is a guide to teaching Hispanic Latino students in a Catholic high school.
Oh, that's beautiful. So for people, so who's the you've mentioned people have come to you and said every Catholic family, uh, should be working with these 5 core themes, I think, that you addressed. So who's the best kind of person who's really going to, really quickly resonate and understand the kinds of things that you're putting together? Are they more creative people? Are they what kind of family really clicks best with and fastest with
Mhm.
what it is you're sharing?
Right, I would say young families.
Okay.
And so it's the young parent who is, their children are small, but beyond the newborn stage.
Hmm.
And they are starting to realize that this responsibility of being a parent is challenging, and that there are so many resources out there today that it's hard to determine, well, which ones should I rely upon, which ones are true.
Hmm.
The message that I'm hearing on TikTok, is that what I should follow, or should I be using something different? And I don't even say that facetiously, right? It's
Hmm.
there's information coming in to young parents from so many different areas, but it's hard to know what's true and what's reliable. And when
Hmm.
it's your own kids, you don't want to muck around. You want the truth. You want something reliable, a guide that is going to help you raise your children in a crazy anti-Christian world right now. And so really that's who I would recommend the resources be geared toward. It is that sure guide, as the catechism calls itself, the sure norm, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and the catechism is one of the recommended readings, right? But
Sure.
um, it helps parents to really understand how to prioritize
Hmm.
life, so that they can raise their children, raise them in the faith, and not get confused or bogged down in those activities that seem urgent but
Hmm.
are not as important as the long-term goal of leading our kids to Christ.
Beautiful, beautiful, Dr. Pam. How can people get in touch with you?
Sure, is through the website. Philomena Press is probably the best way, named after Saint Philomena.
Hmm.
So they can email me there. They can go to the website. That's probably the easiest way if you are in the Twin Cities area. I now work at the St. Paul Seminary School of Divinity at the University of St. Thomas campus, so you can stop by there too as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'll drop the link to the website in the show notes for this show. It is philomenapress.com. Um, and then, Dr. Pam, I like to wrap with a 1-minute message from your heart, about homeschooling to homeschooling families everywhere. If you had 1 minute to share with them, your most important message, what would you want to say?
The most important thing that I would say is be encouraged, and recognize that relationships matter. We are a faith that acknowledges presence because we
Mhm.
believe in the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, but we need to be present to our families. And in homeschooling, we have that opportunity to be present and to develop these lasting, rich relationships. And now that I'm an old lady, I can't believe how quickly the time went that we're empty nesters. And so I know the days can seem long and challenging at times, but cherish these relationships that you're developing with your children. You will
Mhm.
never regret the relationships and memories you're forming.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And for those who are watching the replay of this, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your one friend that you think would really like to see it. And then come and join us in the free homeschool community on CatholicHomeschoolCommunity.com. God bless everyone. God bless Dr. Pam. And we'll see you in the neighborhood.
Thank you, and God bless you too. Have a good weekend.